Guess what, y'all? We got a guest in the barracks today. Houston Chronicle's Jonathan M. Alexander is joining us to break down the upcoming matchup between the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears. And we'll jump into a little bit of the week 1 victory over the Indianapolis Colts. Let's get it.
Hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go. Hard work, work. Everybody doing it right. Hard work, work, work. That's what I say. Hard work, work, work. Earn my pay. Hard work, do it every day. Hard work, work. Get up out of 2:45. Hard work, work. Let me go and earn my pay. Hard work, work. Boots on and lace.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? You're tuned to the Sports Talk with Big Sarge show. I'm your host, Big Sarge. Make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end, and on Instagram at Big Sarge Sports with the Z at the end. Follow me on the Tick and the Talk at Big Sarge Media. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at Big Sarge Media. Make sure you're reading all my articles on www.bigsargemedia.com. Now, before I even introduce the guest, hey, Jonathan, you like, bro, it is entirely too early in the morning to be this loud, right?
You bringing the energy. I ain't gonna cap though.
Hey, man, that's just how it is. You like, wait a minute, Sarge. I just seen you yesterday. You wasn't really this loud. Hey, man, look, get behind this microphone, get in front of this camera. Hey, you remember back in the day, Shaq say, hey, look, I got a $250,000 smile, I got a $500,000 smile, and I got $1 million smile.
Yeah, I feel that. Hey, do what you gotta do. I'm with it. I need to wake up anyway. I'm ready for the day.
All right, y'all. In the barracks today, we have Houston Texans beat writer Jonathan M. Alexander from the Houston Chronicle. Hey, Jonathan, I got a question that I need to ask you before we get started.
All right, let's go. Shoot.
When you found out that Cam Newton was coming back to the Carolina Panthers, you broke that story, right?
Correct.
When you got that information, what did you say to yourself after you got off the phone and you got that information?
Bro, all right, so like, please don't, because I got the tip the night before I broke it. So I'm like, the whole time I'm like, please tell me this is true.
Yeah,
like, please tell me this isn't false, because if this is true, like, this is huge news, and if I'm wrong on it, like, I'm gonna look bad. So I confirmed it with like 2 other people or 3 other people in the night, in the next few hours. So the next morning, I finally get like,
sleep?
No. That's the thing. I promise you, like, it was one of the worst nights of my life, because I'm like wondering, like, is Ian or Adam, are they gonna break this? Like, who else has it? Like, please, like, I need, like, because the first person who told me was kind of like a friend, so I couldn't go with that source. I had to get the like official people who I had formed connections with. So I'm kind of waiting to see them confirm. They finally, like, 3 people confirmed the next day. So like the whole night, like, I'm like looking at my phone, waking up every hour, like literally, like worried. Had Ian on notifications, Adam, my competitors, and none of them had it. Like, I remember waking up at 5 a.m. and then finally getting a text, like, or getting a call at 6 a.m. from one of the persons I called the previous day, and they were like, that thing you asked me about is truth to it. So that was one person. And then the other 2 people who I had contacted, who were more closer to the Panthers, like hit me up and was like, yeah, it's true finally. And I had like 3 sources to go with it at 9 a.m. Yeah. And Ian and Adam did not tweet it, and none of the other, Tom Pelissero, and my chest was pounding. I never felt anything like that. And then I finally put it out, and then the flood works just started going in. And of course I felt confident after having 3 people, but you're still a little bit nervous. Like this is huge news and nobody's put it out. So
yeah, for sure.
It was a rush.
And see, and that's why, man, listen, we've had this discussion offline, man. I can't do breaking news because I already got bad anxiety. I got PTSD. I already deal with enough, man. And I respect you guys, like you, Aaron, DJ, like the people who break the news like that, especially here in the city of Houston, man. Y'all break that news. That's just too much to me, man. And look, it's so crazy because I mean, you know, so Cody M. Davis, who host of Locked On Texans, one host of Locked On Texans, we don't really call him by his name. We just say number 4, right? We just call him number
Yeah,
4.
yeah. The
So
previous number 4.
yeah, the previous number 4. So it's crazy because he's back in the news, of course. But when I got the news, right? When I got the news, I'm saying to myself, because nobody else had it. And I know for a fact nobody else had it. And I just tweeted out, hey man, you too rich and famous to be doing stupid stuff like this. And I just left it alone, man. And then after that, it just started. And I'm saying to myself, and then because I was steady getting other information, and I was just like, hey, look, it's cool, but it is entirely too much for me, man. So that's why I ask you that, man, to have something first like that and just to hold on to it, knowing that you're going to break it here soon, or I mean, you're going to break it. It's just like, man, that's a lot of anxiety. Was Cam Newton a good person to cover as well?
Yeah, I mean, he was super exciting. Like everybody cared about everything he said. So no matter what you wrote, people were going to read it. He's just such a polarizing figure. So I enjoyed covering him. But yeah, the breaking news game is difficult because if you get it wrong, like it could destroy your career
Yeah,
in a sense. And one of the things that I always strive to do is to be accurate and be fair to people. So when I'm holding on to this news, I want to make sure that it's correct. I don't want to get it wrong
yeah,
because it could
sure.
hurt me. So I was just happy. But yeah, Cam was cool to cover. It never a dull moment with him.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm surprised. I was, when I found out that you were coming to Houston, when I found out that you were, going to be a part of the Houston Chronicle, I really thought you was going to show up with like an ascot and one of those hats because I thought Cam would have given you like those type of fashion tips, like you got to wear the ascot, right? With the
Yeah,
and so let's
you
go.
can't. He has his own style. I can't pull off what Cam does.
All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into this thing. On Sunday, the Houston Texans defeated the Indianapolis Colts by a score of 29-27. You and I were at Lucas Oil Stadium. What is just some of your, some of your thoughts on what happened in Week 1?
Yeah, I was really impressed by the running game and the improvement of it in particular. Last year the Texans had only 3 guys go over 100 yards rushing all season in the 19 games they played. And then you get Joe Mixon in his first game and he runs for 159 yards. And he just looks so smooth with it. He's just a different type of back. And he's a little bit motivated given what happened with Cincinnati and how they traded him. They were going to release him. And then the Texans managed to get him before he hit free agency. But just the fluidness of the running game, because Bobby Slowick has talked about it. You know it in the past 2 years, like that has been an emphasis of his. And having a good running game is only going to help CJ Stroud in that passing attack because you can't solely focus on those guys. And when you do focus on those guys, Joe Mixon's going to run it down your throat.
And hold on, Jonathan. Now, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just want to interject this because I know that this was one of the things that you wrote about a lot during the training camp, and and like I said, I apologize for stopping you, but
No, you good.
Because coming out of training camp, the one thing that concerned I know myself, but you as well, was the run game, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was a concern because Joe Mixon got hurt for a couple weeks, so you kind of just wondered, is if Joe Mixon has to miss time, is Dameon Pierce good enough to step up? Is he going to be improved? How's Cam Akers? Cam Akers started to look a little good, but you do have some concerns about his injury history, 2 Achilles tears in his career, but so far he's held up. So that was a little bit concerned. Then Joe Mixon looked like he wasn't missing a beat at all. Just kind of destroyed the Colts, who have a real good front seven, have a really stout against the run, a consistently top 10 team against the run, and I bet you you probably had the same conclusion. I bet you they were thinking we're preparing for CJ Stroud to throw it, so they were trying to prevent those explosive passes, and then they didn't account for Joe Mixon, and he runs for 159 yards.
Yeah, because this isn't week 18 of 2023 when you got Devin Singletary in the backfield. And that's no shot at Motor because, Motor's our guy. And I like what he was able to do when he was here. But, I mean, you have a veteran running back who knows how to run the ball, who is really good. As we talked about this, I think on yesterday's show, he knows how to run in that offensive scheme. The zone scheme, zone run scheme is designed for him because he's one of those backs that can see the holes and he's patient. And so coming into that game, I'm pretty sure they was like, okay, well, this was Joe Mixon. We watched some of the film from him with Cincinnati, but here's something. Here's somebody that's in a whole new system. And plus, hey man, CJ has all these weapons that he's gonna want to throw to. So we're not gonna play the run like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, patience is that key word. I was going to
Yeah,
bring up that same thing. You hit the nail on the head. He's patient. He looks for the holes to open up, and then he runs through them. And then you try to see him in a hole 1-on-1, he's going to run you over.
yeah.
So he's just tailor made. You're right. He's tailor made, built for this offense. Has that experience with Cincinnati, similar style, outside zone running scheme, and I think he fits perfectly to what the Texans are trying to do.
And I just want to side note real quick, like you think that him being in that running back room and him playing in this system and know how to play in this system is going to help Damian Pierce?
Absolutely. I mean, you even looked at some of the runs that Damian Pierce had, where he averaged, I think, 5 yards per carry as well. I think Damian Pierce is a guy who is always striving to get better. One thing you can't say about Damian is he's lazy.
Yeah,
He is as hard on himself as fans are
yeah,
on him. So, I think he's learning a lot from Joe Mixon. I think he's taking a lot. I think he's taking it in stride. He had a pretty good game with the 3 carries that he had. I think he had 3 carries. And of course, he does a lot on special teams. I think it's only going to elevate him. I think he'll have a better year. I think as you'll see going towards the year, the Texans aren't going to run with Joe Mixon 30 times per game because that'll wear him down. You'll see Damian Pierce get more carries and maybe even Cam Akers get some opportunities as well. I think it'll only be beneficial for them.
sticking with this week 1 victory of the Texans over the Colts. So we watched, and I think you and I, DJ and Sam. Hey, listen, side note. Hey man, I like Sam. I want you to make sure you tell him that, man, because sometimes he look like, I was like, no, Sam, you can talk to me, bro. So that's why yesterday when I was sitting next to him, man, I was talking to him. Matter of fact, when we went into the press conference after the game, I was like, hey man, I guess you the good luck charm, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I really like Sam. But when you DJ, Sam and I were talking on Sunday, we kept mentioning at the beginning of the game how inconsistent the offense was. And, like CJ said after the game that there was a lot of rust that needed to be, knocked off. And, that offensive line unit hadn't played in consistent plays together the whole training camp. Laramie didn't practice till late. Titus got hurt. And the only consistency was Shaq, Juice, and Kenyon. And so they finally got a chance to play together. They finally got a chance to knock off some of that rust. And we've seen that. How dangerous can this offense be once they can clean up some of their mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, you look at there were a lot of lulls in the second and third quarter. They couldn't get a lot of deep passes. I think that'll come with time. CJ talked about being rusty. They didn't play consistently as a group throughout the preseason. The preseason is just a little bit of warm up. I think just as you saw last season, the Texans were trying to knock off that rust. I think when you start to get to week 3, week 4, that's when the Texans tend to get in the groove. I think they'll even be even better on on Sunday night. But I think just with consistency and playing together, if these guys can stay together, then they'll of course be better. And that's crucial for offensive line play too.
Yeah.
It's been they were banged up throughout training camp. Laramie Tunsil finally got healthy. But I think they have some consistency. And Kenyon Green, you mentioned it. It's playing really well. I really do think he's an X factor. He was the missing piece on that offensive line. And then he came back and then he really reestablished himself. I heard Nick Caserio mentioning it on a radio show. He had some weight to lose and he lost the weight and now he's healthy. Yeah. And I think that's paying dividends for him and him along with an all-pro type of talent with Laramie Tunsil, Juice Scruggs, who's coming into year 2, who's doing this thing, Shaq Mason, who's the most consistent guy in the world, and Titus Howard, who is getting back to the form where he was a couple of years ago. Having those guys together only helps the Texans and will help this offense kind of flourish and be what they envision they can be, a high-powered attack that can go a multitude of ways.
Yeah, and sticking with Kenyon Green, One of the things that I like about Kenyon, and I got a chance to talk to him a lot in training camp. So Kenyon does feel like he has a point to prove. I mean, here you have a two-time consensus All-American coming out of Texas A&M, drafted high by the Houston Texans. Doesn't have the best of the rookies, best of rookie seasons because he's going up against a lot of talent, a lot of good defensive tackles in his first year. Gets hurt his second year, so he's coming back. So yes, he has a point to prove to not only to himself, not only to his teammates, but this is where the CJ Stroud effect comes in. Because talking to Kenyon was like, I need to prove to CJ that he can trust me. He said, then this was before. He's like, I haven't played with CJ in the regular season game yet. So I need to make sure that we're on the same page, but I also need him to know that he can trust me and that I'm going to do my job. And so he's not out to only prove a point to others, but he needs to know to tell CJ, hey man, I got you. And it's, that's reciprocal because CJ is one of those guys who, he's a locker room guy. And so he's always looking to help others get better. And so, Kenyon is out there trying to make sure that he shows that to everyone. Man, Jonathan, did you realize how many targets the wide receivers had before Tank talked about it on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that it was pretty even. 7 for Nico, 6. What is it? 7 for Nico, 7 for Tank, 6 for Stefan.
Yeah.
I mean, he spread it out around, and so I think that was purposeful by Bobby Slowick, wanting to make sure that he got everybody involved in some ways. And I think you'll see that kind of continue to see that in the future games. And I think there might be games where you see, just like last year, you might see games where Tank is the primary target.
Yeah.
He might go off for 100 yards. You might see a game where Stephon Diggs is a primary target. Where he'll go off for 100 yards. I think that's what makes the Texans so dangerous is because they have so many options that they can go through and like you remember. All right, so let's go back to the fourth quarter situation. 4th and 2. The thing, I bet you didn't know who they were going to go to.
I did not.
They could have went to Nico. They could have went to Tank. They could have went to Stefan. They went to Stefan over there. The 3rd and 11 situation. Anybody they could have went to.
Yeah.
They went to Nico. And then 3rd and 3 situation, the Joe Mixon to run it. I mean, I think that's what makes them so dangerous is they're unpredictable and they got a variety of options. And I bet you there'll be times where they go to Dalton Schultz, or times they go to Tank Dell. I think that's what makes them great.
And you go back to a quarterback, and I'll keep mentioning CJ Stroud, but you go back, you think about the 4th and goal play where they scored a touchdown when he threw the ball to Stephon Diggs. If you go back and you look at that play, the defensive back is already beat by a lineman. He is too far off of Stephon. That was too much room. And you could see CJ seeing that as well. And it looked like the option was he could either have sprinted out left or he could sprint out right, because before the ball was snapped, he went up and he tapped Kenyon. And so when he tapped Kenyon, I guess that was letting him know, hey, I'm coming your way. And so just looking at it being beat by a lineman, but you said that, and we were talking about the targets that those 3 wide receivers had. Jonathan, you remember I think it was in Ohio when we were there, and Bobby said, when Bobby told us, I'm purposely making CJ go through all the progressions. He said, yes, the first one could be open. Yes, the second one. He said, but we're intentionally making him hold on to the ball. Because I don't know if you and I had that discussion. Maybe it was me and DJ. And I was like, hey, man, like I've noticed that CJ has been holding on to the ball a lot. He isn't a quarterback that holds on to the ball like that. But Bobby said, hey, we're making him go through all his reads, and know the first one. And my job is to get the first one open. And even if it is open, I'm not letting him throw to him. And so when Cody Davis and I were talking, I said, wait a minute. Maybe he made him do that because he knows the amount of talent that he has on the field. And so he has to be able, he's going to spread the ball out and he's going to be able to look at everybody. Because I'm pretty sure on every play, Stephon Diggs is open. I'm pretty sure on every play, Tank is open, or either one of those are going to get opened, right? But they may run themselves into coverage in that last play. Maybe here's Nico right here wide open. So could you agree that maybe that's why Bobby was doing that when we talked to him in Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons, and I think it's a brilliant move. I think the other thing is there'll be times, and CJ did a good job of this his rookie year. Zaire Franklin talked about it. They were preparing for also when the first and the second option is not open. So what do you do when the first and second option is? You got your third option. You don't panic. A lot of rookies and first year, second year players tend to panic when those first and second options open. They force it in
Yeah.
there, and then that's when the pick happens.
Mhm.
But Bobby Slowick purposely had CJ wait to his third and fourth option. Get down. Don't throw it to the. I know they're open.
Yeah.
Don't throw it to that first and second option. Look at your third option. That also teaches him patience in the pocket, not take off and run, not force it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you saw, and you saw through that CJ consistently from this first year. But you're also seeing that this year he doesn't look like he's rushed in the pocket. He looks like he's comfortable. He can hit that third and fourth read if that first and second option isn't there. So I think what Bobby Slowick is also doing is preparing him for all the situations that could potentially arise, and that'll only help him be successful. And he has a multitude of options that he can hit. When they run that 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers and they're running back and a tight end, they got 4 guys who can go off on you at any moment. So I thought it was a brilliant move, and I did think it was an interesting point that Bobby had brought up when he brought it up at the time.
Yeah. Once again, you're tuned into the Sports Talk with Big Sarge show. I'm joined by Houston Chronicle's own Jonathan M. Alexander. Jonathan, let's move to week 2. The Houston Texans will face the Chicago Bears in the home opener. The home opener, primetime game on Sunday night, which means that, yeah, it's gonna be a long one for us. A very long one for us. So, what are your early thoughts on some of the Bears games, especially when Chicago had to come when Chicago came back from a 17-0 deficit to the Tennessee Titans to win 24-17, but they didn't win because of Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think when I initially looked at this matchup, I'm thinking, oh, this could potentially be a high scoring game just with all the weapons that both teams have. Obviously the Bears have 3 really talented wide receivers and a young quarterback, and the Texans the same. But I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I love what the Bears can do on defense, and they made things difficult for Will Levis. Jalen Jones is an all-pro type of cornerback, so he got paid like it this offseason. They got a good pass rush too. I just think it's going to be a tough battle where you might see some turnovers. Caleb Williams obviously went through the struggles he had, didn't crack 100 yards, which I thought was interesting, but he definitely has talent. You saw that in the preseason. I think the Texans definitely have to limit those explosive plays that you continue to see them get beat by. And because Matt Eberflus is going to see that on film, and he's going to test the Texans secondary.
Yeah.
So they got to stop that. But I think the Texans should be a little bit better prepared for it. And I think it's going to be kind of not a low scoring game, but maybe in the 20s. I don't think it'll hit the 30s, but it should be a good one. The first primetime regular season game in a long time.
Yeah.
That was on the schedule. That was already built on the schedule and not flexed.
What was the last? I think the last one was 2019. No, 2019 was it?
2021.
2020 against the Eagles.
Yeah, against the Eagles.
Yeah, because
But,
they was
Thursday
playing
Night Football.
Yeah, on Amazon. I remember that because, as a matter of fact, the Astros were playing the same night, and Jalen Hurts, even though they got the win, he was still torn in between because the Phillies. It was, matter of fact, it was the World Series. It was the Phillies versus the Astros, and he was like, I don't really want to say nothing because I'm from Houston, but I live in Philly. So those guys were, even after the game, those guys were in there watching it. So yes, I do remember that. And before I expound a little bit more on what you said, hey Jonathan, do you think that is it just me, or does it seem like the Bears are becoming the Houston Texans 2.0? It's almost like they're building their team exactly how the Houston Texans are building their team.
Nah, I wouldn't be surprised if they really did take some pointers based on what they saw. D'Amico Ryan's talked a little bit about it in the sense that he said that the NFL is a copycat league.
Yes.
And what the Texans did in helping CJ have the season that he had in year 1 is almost like unprecedented. It doesn't happen very often that rookies have those type of seasons that they have. So, of course, teams are going to want to try to do that. And the Bears were intentional this offseason in surrounding Caleb Williams with multiple receiver threats, drafting Roma Doomsday number 9 overall and getting Keenan Allen, trading for Keenan Allen. They're giving him weapons so that he can be successful. And they built that offensive line too throughout. I remember they drafted an offensive tackle a couple of years ago when they had that top pick. So, yeah, I think that the Bears probably saw what the Texans did and probably tried to take some of that so Williams could have some success in his first year.
So, all right, Jonathan. Excuse me for a little bit. Because I got a rant for about this much, right? Because so I was having this conversation. On Twitter, right? Because I don't really call it X because I can't remember to call it X. I just call it Twitter. So I was having this conversation on Twitter, right? With this group, right? This podcast group. And what we were discussing was on one of these podcasts, one of the guys said, I think that Caleb Williams can have a better rookie season than CJ Stroud. And I said, so what brand is it? Like what brand? What I'm sorry, what strand of sativa is it? Or are you using it for medicinal uses purposes only? Was it an edible? Was it a gummy? Like, did you smoke it? Did you eat like did you drink it? Like how much drugs did you take in order to think that Caleb Williams is going to have a record-breaking season like CJ Stroud? And CJ could have shattered those records because he missed 2 games. But the guy was like, so then in this group, they're like, no, man, Caleb is going to do this, that, and other. And I'm saying to myself, well, went back and I watched the game because, when we got home, I said, okay, let me see exactly what happened. And I looked at the numbers first. Caleb Williams against the Tennessee Titans, 14 for 29, 93 yards passing, no touchdowns, 55.7 passer rating, 5 rushes for 15 yards. I said, okay, looked at the numbers because, Jonathan, you know me. Mm-hmm. Look, stats can be skewed. I know that. Stats can be skewed. So I used the eye test. And then I went back and I watched, and I really wanted to tell him, I really, started to tweet out, hey, hear me out. Dear Caleb Williams, this isn't USC. This isn't the Pac-12. You're not playing against Oregon, you're not playing against Oregon, UCLA, Arizona State. Like, you're not playing against you're not playing against college players anymore. Now, there are some college players sprinkled in, but you're not playing against them. So the tricks that you used in college is going to work some. It's not going to work all the time. And Jonathan, when they flushed him out of the pocket, he looked so uncomfortable. And I think that he underestimated the speed of the defensive lineman. Because, you and I have talked to, the rookies that have come through here. One of the things that they always say is, hey, what is one of the biggest things you've noticed coming from college to the pros? The speed of the game, the speed of the people. Even rookie linebacker Jamal Hill for the Texans said, hey, man, I didn't realize that these offensive linemen were so fast. He's like, they don't look like they're fast, but they're fast. He says, when they're fast, the game is moving fast. You got to make fast decisions, like quick decisions. And so that's why, I think that Caleb Williams is super talented. I do. I think he's super talented. One of the things that I had a discussion with somebody was, okay, he's more athletic than CJ. So if I want a Patrick Mahomes, I'm taking Caleb Williams. But if I want a Tom Brady, I'm taking CJ Stroud. And, when I look at him and I'm saying to myself, and like, you really can't go wrong with either. I just don't know. Caleb Williams in his past hasn't shown me that he can manipulate a pocket. And what I mean by manipulate a pocket, not with your athleticism, but with your eyes. Can you look off the safety knowing that you're going to throw exactly where he is? Now, getting into this game on Sunday, I think the Texans are going to score like 30, 35 points on them.
Oh, okay.
Only because I feel like that this defense is going to be able to force him into a lot of mistakes. And if I'm the Texans, if I'm defense coordinator Matt Burke, if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'm like, hey, we're starting Kalen Bullock this game, a guy who practiced against him a lot.
Kalen over who?
Huh?
Over
what
who?
I say?
No. I said Kalen over who? Who are you going to start?
Oh,
Kalen over. I
over
just want to
Eric
hear it.
Murray, of course.
Okay.
Over Eric Murray. So, side note, you remember the 54-yard touchdown that the Colts had? The Colts got?
Yeah.
Have you looked at that play?
Yeah, I saw the play.
Did you see who was out of position? Eric
Yeah,
Murray.
yeah.
I mean, because when you look at the receiver that's stretching the field is moving towards Jimmy. So you're like, hey, let Jimmy have him. I think they only had what? They had 3 wide receivers in the route,
Yeah.
right? One came into the flats, which Henry picked up. One came across the middle. I can't remember the guy's name. That's the one who scored the 55-yard touchdown, came right behind Aziz, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then one stretched the field. So he's going to the right. That's Jimmy's half of the field. Why are you moving over knowing that you still have a wide receiver? When that wide receiver cut across, you see how out of position he was. So, yes, of course, I'm putting Kalen Bullock in it because I also feel like he's even though he's young, even though he's a rookie, he's one of those guys that's very intelligent and he always wants the ball. So he's looking for wherever the ball's going to be. I don't think that he turns and run with that man like Murray did if he's in the game. I also feel like with Caleb Williams, I feel like he knows his weaknesses. And so he could be able to exploit that because this defensive line, one of the biggest misconceptions that I have from Sunday's game is, a lot of people were talking about, well, Will didn't have any sacks. Okay. Daniil didn't have any sacks. Cool. Did you see the amount of pressure that they were putting on Anthony Richardson? And so I know I got long-winded, but that's a touchy subject for me when we start talking about Caleb Williams because people are always trying to compare him with CJ Stroud, and I'm saying no way. Now I do think that the Bears went out and made great additions to their team. I just don't think that they made enough additions to beat the Houston Texans.
Yeah. So, all right, going to your first point, I don't think it's crazy to suggest that Caleb Williams could have a similar type of career as CJ Stroud.
No rookie season.
Yeah, but to suggest that he would have a better rookie season is a little bit crazy when you look at the context of things. CJ Stroud literally had arguably the greatest rookie season of all time.
Yes.
So to suggest another person would have the greatest rookie season of all time is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I think CJ Stroud was a combination of greatness, kind of motivation, and the Texans doing everything by putting the perfect pieces around him, and that's what culminated into the season that he had. Like,
yeah,
I don't think CJ Stroud's season will be replicated for many years. Like, it is really extremely difficult for rookies to have success. Like, it doesn't happen often.
Yeah,
like, and CJ Stroud had success. Like you could count on the amount on your hand how often rookie quarterbacks have had success in the past 2-3 decades.
Yeah.
And like CJ Stroud, was able to do things that other people, like, it was unprecedented what he did. So, I agree with you. Like,
and he missed 2 games.
Yeah, and he missed 2 games. Yeah, yeah. I would not suggest that Caleb Williams is going to have a better season than CJ Stroud. Could he have a good season? For sure. He has a lot of pieces around him, but as you can see, he's going through a rough stretch and learning about, how difficult it is to produce against talented teams. And I think the Titans have a good defense with all the pieces they've added this offseason and Simmons and everything. So it's not going to be easy for Caleb Williams. I think he'll see some success at some point this year because he has otherworldly ability. Oh, absolutely. But it's going to be a struggle in those first few games, and he's gonna go through a roller coaster like most quarterbacks in his position, I think.
Yeah, and especially playing in that NFC North because, I mean, if you look at a team like the Detroit Lions, who have, some have projected to go to the Super Bowl, and we know how good that they're going to be if everybody can stay healthy, but they have a really, really good team. I know that the Green Bay Packers are going through some things now, losing Jordan Love for a couple of games, even though they didn't put him on the IR. So he may be able to come back. I guess, he should be back. What the Texans played him in week 6? If I'm not mistaken.
I think
right
it's
after
in
the
October.
Patriots.
Yes, October 20th, I think. Yeah, it's around week 5, week 6.
Yeah, so he should be back by then. And then, I mean, even though the Minnesota Vikings lost their quarterback. I mean, they still have a very talented defense, and former defensive end, Jonathan Grenard is, still playing at a high level. And so when I look at that, the biggest factor that I look at when it comes to Caleb Williams also is that what is he going to do in these cold weather games? He's not one of those quarterbacks that have ever had to play in cold weather like he's going to have to play in his own home stadium or when he has to go to Lambeau. So I think that that's going to affect his numbers. I think that CJ also benefited from being able to play in some, some very good atmospheres, even though I think that, no matter where he's at, wherever he steps at, he's going to, be who he is. But getting back to the game on Sunday, I just don't know if the Bears have enough firepower, and what I mean by that is led by Caleb Williams to stick with this offense once they get going. Because we talked about this. I talked about this on the show yesterday, and we talked about this yesterday in the press conference, even us in the media workroom. I mean, if you take away the two big passing plays and the block punt, like the Texans blow the Colts out. And so, but I mean, and on the flip side, I'm going to say on the flip side, it could have also been the other way if Anthony Richardson would have been able to connect on some of those passes, those long passes. It could have, that could have flipped the game too. But that's what you get when you have a good defense who continues to put the pressure on a young quarterback, because Anthony Richardson is basically still in his rookie season. And so, as I digress, when I look at the Chicago Bears, I don't think that Caleb Williams is there yet to beat this team. I feel like the Texans have way too much talent on both sides of the ball. And if you can still get Joe Mixon to run like that, I mean, sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, I think that's where they can attack the Bears. I think the Bears struggle against Tony Pollard. I think he averaged 5.1 yards per carry. I think if they follow that blueprint, and they'll probably be prepared for it. But I think that's where the Texans have an advantage is in the running game. I do love the Bears secondary. But I think if they could get the running game going and get the Bears focused on trying to stop it, then maybe they could get some deep shots. I do think the Texans are a little bit more prepared than the Bears are. I do think the Bears will be a good team eventually. I think they'll probably be competing for, late down the stretch for one of the wild card spots, but I think it's going to take them a little bit more time to get things going just because of the newness of Caleb Williams. He's still learning. It's going to take him a little bit of time. And I think the Texans are catching them at the right time. Absolutely. But I think they have the potential to be the next Texans team, the next team that surprises a lot of people and then eventually becomes a playoff team after a year or two. But yeah, I think the Texans just have a little bit too much and they're healthy. We haven't seen them this healthy in years.
For sure.
I don't want to be the reason. Sorry, my dog. I confused my dog. That's on me.
That's somebody knocking on the door?
Yeah, he thought it was somebody knocking on the door.
It's okay, man. Listen, hey, look, that's what happens in the barracks, man. That when you're in the barracks, anything and everything can happen. Last question I have for you though, Jonathan, is: do you think there's any pressure on this Houston Texans team playing in a primetime game like this?
I don't know. They played in a couple of primetime games. With 3 primetime games last year, that Week 18 game against the Colts and performed up to expectations. Performed in that primetime game against the Cleveland Browns and exceeded expectations. I thought the Ravens were a better team. I don't really think primetime really affects the Texans so much. I think they yearn for it. I think you got guys like Tank and CJ and Nico, and they look for those opportunities because they really want to prove themselves. I don't think they're at the point yet where pressure will get to them. Will hurt them. I think it only helps them because they want to be seen. They're motivated that they didn't get a lot of primetime games last year. And the more attention they get, the better they look at it. I think they view it as a positive. So I don't believe that the pressure would get to them.
Even though when we look at those games last year, they came in as underdogs and nobody really believed in them. And now this year, this first game they're playing, there's a lot of, pressure that was in the offseason on this team. Getting to their first AFC championship game and potentially going to the Super Bowl. And I wonder if they make it to the Super Bowl, if D'Amico going to let them watch Kendrick Lamar at halftime.
I doubt it.
I mean, maybe they have it up on the big screen in the locker room. I mean, but I'm just, my thing is, I don't think that they're gonna feel the pressure because you have a lot of guys who have played in big time games in college, and they're too for me. They're like too young to know what pressure is. It's like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about pressure? I mean, we heard Will say on yesterday, like, uh, Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock, they don't even carry themselves as rookies. Like he said,
yeah,
they feel like they're vets, and so I think that they're, and I mean, look at Kamari Lassiter. He won 2 national championships when he's at the University of Georgia. That's big time playing in big time prime time games. And so my thing is I just think that it's at a point where they're too young to know and to feel the type of pressure that some would feel. And not only that, the crazy part about it is they're too young to know it now. And if they continue to be successful, when it's time for people to think that it's going to be pressure on them, they'll be like, we had already been through this when I played 3 years ago, three,
yeah,
4 years ago. So now they're not going to be, it's not going to be pressure on them. If they continue on this trajectory that they're on by year 4 or 5, it's almost going to be expected. It's like
yeah,
pressure. What pressure? We supposed to win this game. We've already been through other games.
yeah. Well, I agree with like half of that point. Like I
Okay.
see, I definitely agree with the fact that the Texans, they draft and they look for people who have played in those big games. You mentioned Kamari Lassiter. We'll answer a lot of Alabama guys, Georgia guys. But I think if I could alter your point a little bit,
Hmm.
I think they've been through those pressure games, like
Hmm.
having played in national championships, having played at bowl games, playing at Georgia, Alabama. You're consistently on a big stage, and is a lot of pressure. Having played at Ohio State, CJ Stroud mentioned that you're like second to LeBron when you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite the pressure that you face in the NFL, but it's still a lot. Like people love college football, but I think because of that, I'm glad you said that. I think because of that, I think it prepares them for moments like this. And the moment is never too big for these guys because they have been in similar type of situations when they were in college.
Which makes sense on why, D'Amico and Nick get all of these guys from SEC schools and
Absolutely.
get the quarterback who played in the big house against Michigan. And I mean, you look at it with the way. I mean, we didn't even mention the fact that when Derek Stingley stepped on campus, he was already the best cornerback in America as a
Yeah, yeah,
freshman, and he
absolutely.
produced and won that national championship. And so, Jonathan, before we get up out of here, man, there's you started a newsletter, man. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. I got a newsletter called Texans Insider. You all can sign up for it. I post often about it on X, but you can either Google it, Texans Insider, go to our website, or check in our stories. But I give you like a lot of behind the scenes stuff, a lot of things to help you with your fantasy teams. Try to give you all some insidery knowledge of that, and it'll go right to your inbox. So you can sign up for it, and you get it every Monday at 12, around 12, and every Thursday at 3. It'll come straight to your inbox. So I just started it a few, like around training camp, like late in training camp or around the first preseason game. And I think it's been going well. And y'all, it's really interactive. Y'all can send me emails, let me know what you think of it, what you like of it, what you don't like. And you can ask your mailbag questions in there too. So I've enjoyed it doing it so far.
Uh, so really quick, I
Yeah.
just want to ask, can you give us because I was about to make a joke, but this isn't a joke that needs to be made here. I'll make it to you on tomorrow though. When I see you tomorrow, I want to make that joke. Some things are just supposed to be kept to the side. And it ain't a
Yeah.
bad joke, but it's just one of those jokes that are like between us. What are you working on, if you don't mind? Tell us, what are you working on for Sunday?
Yeah, I can tell y'all like I'm working on how the Texans figured out this running game.
Wait.
Um,
What?
well, at least we know I had an idea. So anybody watching this,
Yeah. But you're
yeah,
working on how the Texans has figured out the
yeah,
running game?
yeah, how they figured out how it came together is
Mhm.
obviously it was more than Joe Mixon. Got to do some more reporting on it, but I
Yeah.
think it'll be an interesting story because one of the things that D'Amico talked about yesterday and it kind of they weren't expecting Joe Mixon to be on the market, and they went after Saquon Barkley initially, and obviously the Eagles got him, but then the Bengals said that they were about to release him, and they got him kind of in the 11th hour. So mixing along with other pieces, Kenyon Green coming up all right about that Sunday.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell the people here in the barracks where they can find you at.
You can find me on X at John M Jon M Alexander at HoustonChronicle.com/sports/Texans. And on Instagram too. Same one, John M Alexander _ though on Instagram.
What's the deal with you and Cody with these middle initials?
So, well, all right, that's a good story. So my pops, Big Sarge, has met before. When I first started in the industry, old school fella. Yeah. Kappa. He
I don't hold that against him.
He told me, he said, hey, when you write, you should distinguish yourself and put your middle initial in there. So Jonathan Alexander's. It's not a ton of Jonathan Alexander's, but I did like the idea. So I put my middle initial in there so I could see it in my byline, and I've been doing that since I started all the way back in 2013, and it hadn't changed. Yeah. So that was a suggestion from my pops.
Yeah. So Jonathan M. Alexander, Stephen A. Smith, Cody M. Davis. Hey, when you get a chance, because Cody has a very interesting story too about why he started putting the M into his name. Ask him about it, man. I think that Cody's watching this as well, so I'm pretty sure when I get off, he's gonna be like, "Man, you weren't supposed to tell Jonathan that."
You sound just like Cody.
And you can find me. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end, and the tick and the talk at Big Sarge Media. Instagram, Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end. On YouTube, Big Sarge Media, and you can read all my articles at www.bigsargemedia.com. Jonathan, I want to thank you for coming into the barracks today, man, giving us knowledge and insight as a Houston Texans insider for the Houston Chronicle, man. I really appreciate what you do. I know I don't tell you often enough, and one of the reasons why I don't tell you often enough, because you always act like you're on this top secret mission. Jonathan, you always act like, I'm like, yo, what is this? He always, it's like everything is always like, I'm like, is he a secret squirrel or something up in here?
That's funny.
You're always.
I feel like my mind is like always moving. Like I feel like I'm always thinking about the next thing I gotta do. And my mind is always in two different places sometimes.
I got you, man. So once again, man, thank you for coming on the Sports Talk with Big Sarge show, man. I really appreciate it, brother. And
appreciate you having me, bro.
All right, now I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, see y'all maybe this evening for a happy hour. If not, you'll definitely see me tomorrow morning right here on YouTube. Big Sarge, I'm out.
Hard work, hard work.